All right, guys. Hey, this is the rest round. We are live right now on Instagram and everything else, but doing something a little bit different. So a lot of times we're talking, sports and jiu-jitsu, of course, but anything like that. So today we're not, because I'm kind of a big nerd when it comes to like all kinds of things that are paranormal and UFOs and Bigfoots and stuff like that. And I happened to, after our tournament the other day, I was having dinner with Lisa Roberts and a bunch of friends, and she mentioned her friend Jamie Wells, which is on here now. And I said, well, I need to talk to her because she was telling me some good stories. So hopefully it lives up to the hype, Jamie. There's a lot of pressure.
Too much.
Yeah. So speaking of that, let me put this on here. Jamie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and after that, actually, we'll have Lisa tell us about herself too, because you're stuck on here, Lisa.
Oh, wow.
People need to know who these women are on the screen. So, Jamie, anyway, go ahead.
Makes sense.
I hate that question.
I know. So, well, this way, I'll help a little bit. Do you currently live in Elkview or around?
No, I live in Kenna.
Kenna, okay. Yeah, great place. I'm just fucking with you. I don't know. Kenna, yeah. These are, regardless if people don't know where that city is, West Virginia, little town in West Virginia. I can't remember, is that 79 or 77, Kenna?
Oh,
It's 77, 77
Yeah,
north.
Jamie, you're probably like, I don't
Ripley.
know roads, and I've lived here
I'm not good with like interstate and all
She's
that.
terrible.
It is between Charleston and Ripley,
yeah.
or I guess Charleston and Parkersburg, maybe easier for people.
Well, it is easier because Gary was from Ohio, and he understands the Parkersburg trip, so it's a little space in between there. But that's not where all this stuff happened, and we'll talk about that later. But Lisa Roberts,
Yes.
where are you at?
Where am I at?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Who was that?
I'm a-
Because I would call you Goose.
Oh, yeah,
even now.
most people do. I'm in Charleston.
No.
Born and raised in Elkview. Jamie also grew up in Elkview. We grew up together.
Yeah,
He didn't mention that, but yeah.
well, no, and that's important. That's kind of what I was getting to, is that you guys grew up together in Elkview, West Virginia. That's where I'm currently at. Even though I always say Charleston, it's kind of like, like, for example, I'm from Cleveland, and people say they're from Cleveland. Like if they ask where they're at, Cleveland, I mean, they could say they could live in any suburb known to man, sometimes 45 minutes to an hour away. Has nothing to do with Cleveland, but that's what they say, right? Gary, you know how that is, right? Like it's probably the same in North Carolina now. Like people just name whatever big city they're by. But anyway, I was kind of going to bring that up because we all have this Elkview connection, which, Gary's a little bit out of the loop.
Yeah.
He's not nearly as cool of us as our West Virginia people.
Right. I feel for you. Well, it's okay though.
Yeah.
One day.
Well, we'll see if we let you.
Are you guys both, Lisa and Jamie, are you guys both Huskies? Did you both go to Hoover High School?
No.
Jamie did not go to Hoover.
Went to Capitol.
So did you two hate each other? Why are you friends?
We were friends before high school.
Yeah. She started out being good friends with my twin sister, and then coming over like to spend the night. And then my sister is kind of more quiet, docile temperament. And I think we just clicked, her and I and my older sister, just more. So just the friendship just like evolved from there. So since like 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah. A long time.
Okay, identical twins or paternal twins?
Paternal.
You wouldn't
Okay.
even know they were related.
Yeah.
If you saw them, you wouldn't even think they were sisters.
At all.
Yeah, their personalities are so different. I mean, like they're just.
She sucks.
I
She doesn't
know,
watch the show.
that's not true. But they're way different from each other. But Jennifer always went down to the Workman's too, and I never wanted to go down there.
So
Yeah, I'm friends with
a
everybody.
long time. We've been friends.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. So, so I was trying to get a background here. So now, Jamie, I guess we'll kind of jump into this, unless Gary thinks I'm wrong doing so. Did all this stuff happen in Elkview, or am I making that up?
Yeah.
It did. Okay.
Yeah.
That's even cooler because I'm in Elkview.
So it could happen to you.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, before I ask another question, Gary, do you want to jump in here a second? I want to like because I'm the excited one. Gary's probably like, what the hell are you?
Well, so Butch has been doing his homework on the paranormal, and as far as like, I guess West Virginia is a hotbed for UFO activity or sightings or something like that. And how old, I guess first, Jamie, how old were you when this happened? Would be the first question.
I'm gonna say I think probably, because you also have to take into context when these things happened. It not at all even registered on my mind. Like, I mean, I think like initially it might have been like, holy fuck, is that like a microchip from a UFO? But then you don't really like believe it. Like, oh, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? But then I think as you age and you just probably absorb more knowledge, and you know what I mean, in your thought, then you look back and you go, no, like 100%. Like, I think that really happened. So I think I was probably like 14 or 15.
Okay. So 14, 15. And that's the thing. So I am, and this is really, this is going to be just the viewers and everybody who's watching. And I know, I think Butch is a believer. I am slightly skeptical, but easily turned. Okay. I'm interested. So I'm not, I don't want to come off saying that
You're
anybody's lied
alien
about it.
agnostic. Got it.
Yes, I'll take that. I'll take that. So I'm slightly skeptical, but I'm not naive enough to think that there's no possibility that we couldn't be visited by something that's millions and millions of miles away, right? Like there's somebody had to have had somewhere had to have traveled further than what we've traveled in the galaxy, if we think about the galaxy being as old as it is or whatever. So I am slightly skeptical, and I don't want to come off as being a naysayer or diminishing anything. I think Butch is a little more leaning towards, hey, I want to believe. I'm leaning a little bit towards like, I don't know, maybe.
But so Gary, I don't know how involved are you have been in everything, but are you aware that the U.S. government in particular has come out flat out and said there are UFOs now? Like, right?
I have. I also don't believe everything that the government says.
Oh yeah, that's
no, and that's very fair, because sometimes I think it reminds me, just to bring it back to what Gary and I know, it reminds me of when I'm talking to somebody and they're like, we're talking like UFC or something, and they'll say like, if I was in a fight, I would just knock you out before you took me down, right? And I would show you my wonderful taekwondo, and I'd kick your ass, and your jiu-jitsu is useless. And then I say, well, they solved this problem in 1993. That's why the UFC came out, and all these questions have been answered, right? Sometimes I feel like it's like this conversation, right? Like sometimes I feel like people are going backwards and they say, like, I don't believe or this or that. And I'm like, well, you do know that above and beyond, like they've kind of come out and said, hey, all this is going on, whether you want to believe, like, that's the other thing. People are very skeptical of the government, rightfully so. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, but above and beyond, I mean, for years and years and years, there's been weird stuff going on. You don't have to believe all the stories, right? But in fact, there's another story just the other day where the government's going to create another UFO task force, because they're admitting there's some weird stuff going on, and they have to be involved in it. Plus, it's a very strange time to start Space Force and all this other weird stuff. This is the weirdest time going on. And I think also I would say it's so weird because normally all this stuff would be headline news, but it hasn't been, right? Like, because we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are so crazy right now. It's like, hey, like they're worried about everything else, and then people, like, the government releases a report and they say, hey, like, literally one of the reports they released in New York Post was, we have an off-world vehicle in our possession. That's from the US government. That's very strange. And everybody was like, that's okay. What about coronavirus, right?
yeah.
What about wearing masks? What about vaccines? What about Kyle Rittenhouse? What about this? What about, what I mean? Like, a bunch of things that are important in their own right. But it's very strange. There's never been a time in my life where I would think that they would make such a, like, this is Star Trek stuff, right? Saying, hey, there's some stuff out there. We have in our possession this vehicle or other things. And everybody's like, whatever. right? They just move like so.
Yeah.
And
random.
this is the thing. I am not like, whatever. I want you to show it to me. If you
Yeah,
have
no,
an
you're-
off-world, I don't believe the government until they show it. Show me this off-world vehicle that we have, and then I'll believe it. I think it's convenient, and regardless of whatever side you're on of COVID or Rittenhouse or BLM or anything like that, I think it's an interesting time to try and drop knowledge to dissuade us from what issues are currently hitting us. And so that's where I'm at. As far as like the government trying to hey, there's off-world vehicles or we have alien encounters or whatever. The government has lied to us on so much. God, I sound like a QAnon guy now, and I hate it.
It's all right.
But the government has lied to us so much about so many things that it's hard to take them at face value. And I just all I'm asking for is just a little proof. That being said, I want to believe. I want to believe it. Like, I want to believe in Bigfoot. I want to believe in UFOs. I want to believe in ghosts because that shit is awesome as hell to me. And so I want to believe it. But
I grew up in a haunted house too, just so you know.
you live in a haunted house?
I grew up in a
Yes.
haunted house. And
You
she
grew
can back
up in
me
a
up on
haunted
that.
house.
100%.
Yeah.
Supposedly, okay, now I'll get into the ghost story, and then I don't really have any other stories. But supposedly there was the house that I was living in Ohio, that it was a haunted house, and there was a lady who died there, and I guess she was supposed to come down the stairs, but I never seen her, and I looked for her all the time. She never. I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't as attractive as Lisa thought I was, and so she never came out for me. But I don't know.
That's
You
for
know,
you.
It's funny too, and the same like, did you guys ever read those stories called like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, part
Yeah.
1 and all that? So like some of them took place in Ohio, and that's where I'm from, obviously. And so I remember a bunch of us in high school went to the cemetery because this woman was supposed to come out at this night and do something, right? She was supposed to come out and it's, whatever. It was in this book, right? So we all went there. It's probably like 5 or 6 of us. Nothing happened that I can remember, but it's kind of what I expected, right? Like we're all waiting, but then you get bored. So then your friends start doing stupid stuff. I was probably one of them, right? Like start trying to scare each other. And then ultimately, like the cops showed up because like there's a bunch of high schoolers hanging out at a graveyard, right? That's not good. And it was funny because we actually had the book with us. So the guy like didn't believe us. He thought we were over there knocking over tombstones and vandalizing graves. And we're like, no, man, like we're waiting for a ghost, right? So you can imagine how this story goes. The guy's like, yeah, sure you were. I'm sure you're out there like doing all kinds of weird, and whatever. And so luckily we had the book with us, the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And then I showed it to him and he was like, oh, so you really are waiting for a ghost? I was like, well, yeah, I mean, but I haven't seen it. Like just so you know. And he's like, yeah, you're probably not going to, obviously, and but I think sometimes that, and for me, that's the thing, like it doesn't mean like the thrill of that whole thing was just exciting, right? Like I still, it's kind of like in my, so Gary's right, I guess, ultimately, like I do like all that stuff. Does it mean like I'm an idiot when it comes to it? Like, no. But I want to be there if it shows up, right? So I'll put myself out there where maybe I wouldn't. Yeah, like do I think Bigfoot exists? Probably not, right? But we both have a good friend that's a Bigfoot guy, and that's the thing. Like I want to believe the same thing. I'm more probably with Bigfoot than Gary is with UFOs. It sounds like, where I'm like, I don't think that guy's out there, but I want him to be out there. If Bigfoot was real, that would be freaking awesome. So
that's how I feel about Bigfoot. Yes.
Yeah, and then ultimately,
I know Bigfoot.
Ultimately, it's probably the same with what we're going to talk about, Jamie. Is that how can you discount people that said they see things, right? I cannot. Like, I'm never going to be like, well, that guy, not never, because there's some people that I've met that I'm like, that guy's he's probably seen all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't even know how he wakes up in the daytime. But in general, I'm like, look, man, if you said you saw it, I'm not one to say that you didn't. And I hope that you did, and that it happens. So I guess it's kind of a segue into this whole thing. So when you're 14 or 15 in Elkview, West Virginia, I guess what kind of happened there? Let's just jump right into it, and then you can tell us there.
I'll get it for you.
I'm a person that like can't, like if there's something like an imperfection, I would just be like it's my temperament or whatever to be like I can't stand that. And in my wrist, it was just like a black speck or something. And I think I maybe like in my mind I kept thinking like it would go away, or it's like you know what I mean. And then finally, I think one night I sat down and I was like, I can't stand it anymore. So I got like tweezers and like a razor out. And I just started like digging. And probably for like half an hour, 45 minutes. And I finally dug this, and it just looked like literally like, no, my keys have,
I got it.
like literally like a, to just look at it almost like a fleck of sand or something in your hand. And finally, when I dug it out, I think the anomaly that made you kind of go, well, that's weird, was most things would be imperfect, like round or jagged. It was very square. And my dad is, he builds like ammunition and stuff like that. So he has like a super like high powered like magnifying glass. And we got it and we were like looking at this thing and it looked like a microchip, like where, you know, like if you looked at one and you could see like it was perfectly square and looked like a microchip. And like, I think me, maybe my older sister, I don't even know about if my mom and dad or whatever, but we were all kind of like, that's so fucking weird. And so that happened, but I think what more like now as I'm an adult, like really like sealed the whole like, because I think you look at it and you go, that looks like a microchip. Why would that be embedded in my skin? It was like within a week's time of that happening, after that happened, that when I'm like, I cannot stand for my feet to touch the ground. Like even to this day, I wear flip-flops, or like when I get out of bed, my feet.
Do you mean bare feet? Like you can't have your bare feet touch the ground?
No, I can't stand it.
Okay.
So back then I always had socks on. And you're gonna be like, what's this happening? But it's like, so
it's gonna come around.
Yeah. So I remember waking up one morning and I went to get out of bed and I always had socks on. And I was like, I went to like touch the ground, or I did touch the ground, and I was barefooted and I was kind of like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Because you just know you and like your rituals or whatever. And so it's kind of like, oh, that's fucking weird. So I guess I probably jumped over somewhere and got like a pair of socks and threw them on. And so I was like 14 or 15. You take into account, I was probably, I don't even know why I was home, because I'm sure it was a school day. Because so I remember walking in and going to the kitchen and just going about your day. And I feel at some point I remember looking down, and you know how people have like by your door like a little like muddy, like where you put boots and bullshit like that. I remember looking over there and my socks were sitting there covered in mud. And I thought, that's weird. But I think, again, you just go on with your day, but things strike you as odd.
So I'm going to hold you up right there. So you like, you had muddy socks in the mud area or in front of the door, and they were just hanging out there.
They were just like if you had taken, like if you come home and you had muddy shoes on and you took them off by the front door, my socks from the night before were there by like the muddy boots. And I think, again, I was kind of like, that's weird, but maybe you just kind of like, what the fuck, but you go on with your day.
When you went to bed, do you remember having your socks on?
I always had my socks on.
So
always.
you remember having the socks on before you went to bed. And then you woke up, you come downstairs, no socks. What the hell am I doing with no socks on or whatever? And you look over by the door and you got muddy socks by the door where you would take your shoes off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, and my mom, so you also taking like, I did not drink. I didn't smoke weed. There was nothing that I would have done that would have altered my like perception at like 14 or 15. I didn't do anything like that. So my mom comes home from work at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. She's a school teacher. And like instantly when she comes home, she was just like, what? And like, what were you doing out last night? And I was kind of like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, literally, what are you talking about? Because she was just like pissed. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She was like, at 3:30 in the morning, she was woke up. I was outside banging on the back door as hard as I could. Banging, banging, banging. She got up. So she probably thought the cops are here, somebody died or something. She was just like, you were just trying to beat the door down. And she come and let me in the house. And then she was just like, what are you doing out there? Like, I'm sure in her mind, 14, 15-year-old kid, you're thinking you snuck out or some bullshit like that. And all I would talk about was how freezing I was. And like, they brought me back. I'm so cold. I'm so cold. And I would just sit there and like stand in the kitchen or the dining room. And I would just sit there and rub my arms. And like I was standing up and I would bend down and rub my legs and rub my arms.
This is what you were telling your mom? This is what your
my
mom was telling? Okay.
Yes. I have no memory of this. To this day, I have no memory. And if like my mom is just a person that would just like never lie, ever.
That's true.
And to this day, I still have. So it was literally like, I just like had it like something just put me outside of that house. I have no memory of it. I had no memory of it. That whole next day, I had no memory of it. And then she's just like, I got up at 3 a.m. You're out there banging. And we're talking like this time of year. So, and I was like in t-shirts and shorts, like something you'd go to bed in and socks. And it's like this time of year where it's cold, I'm out there banging on the door with no memory of being outside, why I would go outside or anything like that. And that happened like within a week of me taking that out of my arm.
Did you find it before? Did you find the thing in your arm before or after this event?
That before. So it was like that event that I have no memory of just being outside of the house. It was like I removed the whatever it was in my arm, microchip, whatever. And then it was like within a week of that, removing that incident happened.
But then didn't you find more?
And then I found another one in my arm, and it might have even been like 6 months to a year later, but I don't have like any like missing time or anything like that, or that I recall or remember after that.
It's kind of interesting. So I guess so a lot of times when you see these things, like people go through like hypnosis or something to try to remember something. You've never done that,
I would
right?
love to do that.
Well, yeah. And so Jeremy asked me, a friend of mine on Instagram, what did you do with the microchips? So you still have them, or did you do something?
No,
with
I'm sure we just like it. Just again, I was like 14.
I feel like you told me that you went and smashed it.
Or
the
maybe
one that you took out, the first one.
Like, because I think you're 14 years old. I mean, like if I found one now, I'd be like, oh, like let's investigate. But then,
No, it's a good point, right? Because that's the first thing everybody's going to ask, right? And like, if I could go back and do a lot of the things that I've done wrong, it'd be great, right? Because there's things I've thrown away. I'm like, I'll never need that. And then like a year later, 2 years later, I'm like, why'd I throw those things away, right? Like, or just whatever it was. Or
and I think like in context, even like finding that, even if you say at that moment, like, oh, it could be UFO, you don't really fucking believe that shit. You know what I mean?
And as a kid, you don't think anybody's going to believe you anyways on anything. And so that's enough.
It would have never crossed my mind to like save it, to send it in to some, or in it just, that would have never crossed my mind.
Well, let's keep in mind. So roundabout, how old are you? Like, you don't have to tell me exactly.
No, I'm 45. I don't care.
Okay. All right. I want to make sure you didn't punch me or something.
You are 45, yes.
No, well, that's another thing. So we're talking, I'm not very good at stuff, 30 years ago, right? So 30 years ago, that's the other thing. If you talked about what we're talking about now, or ran around and said, I have a microchip, like you probably go to some lunatic asylum, right? Like,
and I think more back then, things, anything like that. Just like, I was surprised. I mentioned to my, which I don't give a shit now. Like, if someone thinks I'm crazy, I'm just kind of like, whatever. But I would thought, I told my daughter that I was coming out here to do this, and I had never even told her about it.
Oh,
And
really?
like, she's a person literally that probably knows like every single thing about me in my life. And she was just kind of like, and she was sitting there rolling her eyes like, you're fucking stupid. And I was like, no, seriously.
But
I
she
was
wasn't there when you were like, there's this thing here.
So when you, I guess, how hard was it to dig that out of your arm?
I would say like, I don't know if anybody's ever had like a wart where you like, if you've ever set, most people would, this is how, like, I think I had a wart on my finger right here once. And most people would go and have it froze off or cut off side. Like, I am just a person that can't stand in an imperfection. So, and you have to sit and dig and dig and dig and dig because warts have like seeds in them. Like, I remember just digging and digging and digging down until finally I got it out. So I would say it would have been like 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And it wouldn't even have mattered if I was just like pouring hemorrhaging blood. I would just be like digging, digging, digging until I got it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's
That
interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds right because I'm the same way. I've had plantar's warts or whatever, and so it's the same thing as like I'll sit there, I'll pull my foot up and I'll look at it and I'll dig at it and I'll cut it open and so I'm with you on that. It's like, hey, why is this here? It needs to come out.
Yeah. So it was, I think I remember maybe, I don't even know how long it was there and then like when I just get like in my mind, like, nope, this has got to go. I'm done with this. That I just sit down and I remember it was like 30 to 45 minutes. Cause I mean, even doing like a wart, that shit hurts. You know what I mean? So you're digging and you keep hoping you're going to get it and you're digging and digging. And then I think it took about that long. And then it would probably have been more like a situation where you wouldn't have even, you didn't know what it was. And then I remember the striking thing about it was square, which made you even kind of stop to look at it to be like, what is this that's perfectly square? And then when we got a magnifying glass and then you could see it looked like a chip or a board.
So okay, so it was square. What color was it?
I would say it was like a silver black. And I remember like in my memory, I feel like that you could see like, you know, like a microchip board where you can see like the lines will kind of go this way and that way, that I feel like it was like maybe reds or whatever. And that was the distinguishing fact about it. It was something to me that wouldn't have been just like natural, like a rock or something, you know, where rocks are usually just round or rough edges.
Ragged.
Yeah, and ragged. It was just like perfectly square. And then when you really looked at it to see like, it looked like kind of like a microchip, I guess.
So you could see,
Yeah.
you could see on it like the different, like there were lines that were drawing to like different electrodes or whatever.
And that's what I feel like. And again, 30 years. And even at the time when this is happening, even if you sit around, I mean, it's just like if something happened and you go, holy shit, that might be that. But I think even when in real time, when you're going through anything, a ghost experience or anything, you don't really believe this shit's happening to you. It's just kind of like, oh, that seems like an alien. And then you know what I mean? And then it probably takes you a long time after your mind to just like wrap around that and processes it and go, oh shit, maybe that really was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, here's what I was thinking too. While you guys talking about. So let's think about 30 years ago. Did anybody even know what a microchip was? Right? I don't think we did. Now, I'm not saying nothing bad about you.
Commonly.
I'm just saying like that might be another thing. Like now it might dawn. Like I'm assuming back then it didn't dawn on you as being a microchip because I don't. But I also could be wrong. Like because I'm thinking like for me, like 1995. 96, 97, like when I had dial-up internet, right? And we're talking about like a 1 to 2 gig hard drive, and you know what I'm saying, there's probably microchips typically, but we didn't have like an iPhone.
Well, even I was gonna say 95, you're probably not even talking gigs and hard drive. It was like 512 megabit. You know, it like
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, because yeah, it was like probably
It would've been
90.
It would have been like way before that still.
Oh yeah, like when we were like, let's say,
We've been together since like 15 or 16.
okay, and cell phones were like huge
Yeah.
boxes.
Or the
So to
back
have,
phones.
yeah, like so to have something that might be comparable, more, I don't even know if they're that small today, like microchips. I'm saying like a piece of sand. You know what I mean? Like so small.
But you knew, and I guess that's my point too. Even though, like nowadays, you could be like, "That's a microchip," but back then, I'm just guessing you wouldn't exactly know, but you just knew it was not normal because it had edges, it was square, it had a design to it, right? Am I saying this right? Enough to
Yeah.
where you're like, that doesn't seem normal. Is that correct?
I'm trying to like to. What did my mind think at that moment?
Yeah.
Did my mind say microchip then? I can't remember. I just knew that it was, you know what I mean? Like your mind's going to a place of going, this seems like something of technology, but so small, maybe. Is, you know what I mean?
But you have, and it kind of goes to like the whole story, like, but you saw that and you just knew. How long did you feel that before you're like, I need to get this out of my arm? Yeah. Was it?
Well, I didn't know it was microchip. It was just something that was in my arm. Like, and I don't even remember how long it was there before. Maybe I was just like, I got to get this out.
Well,
you know
how
what I mean?
long, like when you noticed it, how long did it take you before you tried to dig it out?
I don't know. I mean, like it could have been a week, it could have been a month. I don't know. And
But
then, you know, you just,
so there's no, but just to clarify, and I already know the answer, but I just that way we're all on the same wavelength here, is that you, up until you saw this and you took it out, there wasn't like, hey, something weird happened and I have this. There was none of that. It's just, I
nothing
have.
weird happened to me at all
That you
before that.
remember.
That I remember. I don't even remember the incident where I was like outside.
Yeah.
This is just me being like, I believe in aliens because I think we're ignorant to think that. I think I just heard that there was like 80,000 other like solar systems.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no fucking way. If there's that many other if there's even 10 more solar systems, there has to be other life somewhere else. So to assume there's not is just, to me, is ignorant. So when all that happened, I don't know if I even put it together. It's like you get older and then you think back on things that happen to you and go, oh, I think this happened to me. And then you know what I mean? Like I would love to get hypnotized just to see like if there is. And then, I mean, and it's like, I guess, oh boy, being a skeptic. Is it really that happened to you, even if you're hypnotized, or is it your mind just filling in blanks or making up things that you maybe want to believe? You don't know.
Yeah.
Have you had any since then? Because like what you're saying, this is about 30 years ago now. Have you had any experiences since then, like revisiting or anything that seems like
at all?
Nothing.
No.
Well, let's go to this, because this is the weird part. So if your mom, is your mom still alive or no?
Yeah.
So what does she think? Have you talked to her about that night, saying, okay,
she would be like, that's stupid. She wouldn't even acknowledge. My mom is super religious. So
Yeah.
I think to her, it would be, there's God and there's humans and then there's extraterrestrials, in that mentality would think there's no room for that.
If aliens are not in the Bible,
Then it just couldn't exist. Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah,
it's
interesting.
Even consider.
But I think even when we're talking earlier, like, you know, the Pope has come out and said he has room for that, right? Yeah, it's that's what I'm saying. Like we're above, and like it's just funny because this talk, you know, like it's not like the 50s. Like the current Pope comes out and says, hey, there 100% could be aliens. I don't know. And it doesn't mean that there's not a God. And then for other people, like if God, is he not an alien? I mean, like, you're right. Like who's this guy doing all these weird things and this magic?
Yeah.
I mean, where'd he come? right? Like maybe there's a whole bunch of those people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but anyway, that's not, I'm not saying that's what I believe or nothing. I'm just saying, like, it's funny when I hear religious people say that, and I'm like, then you believe in this magic being doing all this stuff, but you can't believe in this others, you know, whatever. It sometimes
Validate what you're saying. I agree.
yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I don't want to get stuck in the weeds with I'm arguing back and forth on whatever's going on there. But sometimes I think it's goofy that people are like so hardcore of not believing something, but they'll believe in these miracles and these weird things that they've never saw, or you know what I mean? And again, I'm not trying to be facetious or anything like that. I'm just saying there's a lot of room for stuff to happen there. But so it's interesting though. So then after, obviously, just so I can catch up and we can catch up. And so you take this out, your mom's got this story or so after this happens, right? We can't fill in the blanks of what happened. We just know that your socks were at the door and they were muddy. And it was shortly after you took out this thing, right? Is that correct?
I would say within 7 days. So, and then I went to bed at night like normal. And I woke up outside, locked up outside of my house. But I have no memory of that. And then my mom wakes up to let me in. And then I'm sure I went back to bed. And then I get up the next day, just no memory of any. To this day, I have no memory of any of this.
Yeah. But it's led you to believe what, I guess, how do we get to this point, right? Like if I'm just talking like I'm Gary, because I'm just gonna pick on Gary. But if I was like, okay, you got this story and you took out this thing, but that's it, right? Like how does everybody else get to be where we think we're at, right? That this probably happened, that you probably have something in there. What leaves you to believe that, other than just some kind of, you know, your socks being at the door, I guess? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
I think I would not have correlated anything UFO from just the like being outside or whatever, but then finding something literally like implanted in your body that was like a microchip. And then to have an experience where it was literally like you were removed from your home with no memory of it. All those things to me, you know, lead me to believe, well, if there is UFOs, that it's like if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. All those things lead you to believe it seems like it's this. It could have been fucking Bigfoot that done it to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let me follow up with this question real quick, and then Gary, you can take over. But and I think you kind of answered, but I want to follow up on these two questions so I don't miss it. It says, what is the theory on why you were unknowingly outside after you had removed the chip? So that's question number one. And then question number two would be, is that when the second chip got put in? Does that make sense?
There was a second chip that I dug out of my arm, but again, I don't even remember the time frame because I'm a kid. I'm like 14 years old. So and when all this is going on, I'm not correlating this or even trying to create really a timeline in my mind. You know, it's just like, again, there's something in you, dig it out. So I don't even remember how long. The only thing I remember to be like definite was I remember finding the first one, which probably was more like shocking, because then it's like you find something that looks like that and you're like, what the shit? If you find more, then you're kind of like, oh, it's a Tuesday. Found another one. And then it was, even to this day, me just being outside, like in the middle of the night and have no memory of that is just weird as shit to me. I like in it just to have experience like that.
Yeah.
So you don't have any history of like sleepwalking? Nothing like that.
I mean, like now I could probably be like, if it happened to me, I'd be like, oh, I drank too much liquor and I blacked out. Now I would say that.
Been not back then.
Yeah, but that's why I was like, back then, no. Like, so I might have been abducted a million times and I just blaming it on the liquor. I don't know.
I mean, I will say as a teenager, Jamie and I shared a bed like a lot. She even lived with me for a long time. She never even snored or anything. Like, she's not a restless sleeper or whatever. So she never
like,
walked around and did anything
for
weird.
that to happen, and I guess maybe you have to know yourself, is like bizarre.
Like my daughter, my oldest daughter, she sleep talks, she sleepwalks, she snores, she does like everything you can think of that's a disturbed sleep type thing. So if she had a story like that, I would definitely be like, you probably just did this. But like I said, she never did anything ever. I mean, so
well, as a sidebar conversation, if I just said that Gary and I spent many nights together in this, what would you guys think of us? Just a sidebar conversation.
Something about mountain, like Brokeback Mountain.
No, we didn't.
Or did I just hear that?
All I'm gonna say is that I was the big spoon. I don't care that he's 6'6". I don't care that he's 6'6".
It's just like the reason I say that, 'cause that is one of the things that's always been on my mind. Like every time a girl says I was with my girlfriend, I always think if I had the same conversation, I was like, I was out with my boyfriend. Right?
It is different.
It is different.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say we should change it or nothing. I'm just saying it's very like every time that pops up, like, maybe it's a Beavis and Butthead moment in my head when you're like, we shared the bed together. I'm like, okay. All right, I got you. But anyway,
I ain't gonna lie. My initial reaction was, tell me more about sharing a bed with her.
I'm sure it wasn't that exciting. I mean, it wasn't. Sometimes there was even 3 of us in a bed.
Up here it was exciting. Up here it's exciting.
Well, there was that one time with your cousin and that guy on the floor. Heather. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Remember that. Mine is like an iron trap. You remember stuff.
It was me and Mandy in a little twin size bed, and Heather and Alva were like getting it on the floor, and we were scared to move.
She's a lesbian.
I know, that's what, and he was gay. That's what made it more weird. What made it more
has
weird.
To be an alien moment.
Everybody was there because it was terrifying.
Well,
anyway, that's a total sidebar. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, so getting back on track briefly, and Gary alluded to this earlier, and just so you know too, this is normally probably same for Gary. Like every time I get on this, I just get on here because I'm lazy, so I just talk and I find out my information then. However, this is the only time that I ever actually did research before we started, so I'm proud of that. You guys should be too. But what I want to say though is, so West Virginia is the top 20th place. It's number 20 for UFO sightings. So it's considered a hotbed of UFO sightings. And I looked up.
World.
Yeah. Well, that's the United States, but
then that's more like middle.
It's pretty good though. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so
we're in 50 states and we're at 20. That's middle.
Who do you think's number one?
Who do I think's number one?
Yeah.
Arizona.
I think somewhere Midwest with the crop circles and bullshit.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Or it's Idaho. So our alien abductee it was way ahead of everybody. So that leads more like she's probably right on. Probably gives more credibility to her story. But no, I was shocked. It was Idaho too, but it also makes sense. But because I always heard like places like Florida and California were like number one, like San Diego, just places that are over the ocean. Like really all those videos that were just released by the government were all basically close to San Diego. All those things that there. And it's all military stuff, but which I'm not going to get into all that stuff, but because it doesn't matter. But I just wanted to look it up. And long time ago, I had bought a book. It was all about sightings and stuff that were in West Virginia. And the reason I was looking that up too, because I wanted to kind of correlate with that timeline to see if that, like if you said, hey, this happened in this date, if I can look it up and somebody else is saying, yeah, about this time, this happened. Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna do that now while you guys are talking, but I'll look it up because there's a bunch of stuff. So we all know, actually, we all don't know. And this would be good to bring up now too. So West Virginia, we have the Mothman, right? And I assume people know about that because I'm in West Virginia. But for example, my manager just came in from my real job. I was telling him about the Mothman. He had no clue, never heard of the movie, never knew him, nothing. It just so happened we were out near Point Pleasant. So we went to the Mothman Museum, visited a Mothman statue. It was like a fun thing. It had zero to do with, again, it doesn't mean that we believe in that story or nothing, but maybe, who knows? And then there's the Flatwoods Green Monster, right?
Yep.
That's another big one.
Yep.
So it was very interesting.
You don't know about the Braxton County Monster?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a big deal. That's a big thing.
Yeah, and they may be actually, like, there's some theories that those are the same thing, right? They don't know. It was like around the same time, and they saw something with green eyes or red eyes, and similar stories, just different places. And so, for example, in Flatwoods also has a museum dedicated to the Flatwoods Green Monster.
Yep.
My cousin always told me, and I can't verify this or not, but he told me a long time ago, there was a place where UFO landed in Flatwoods that grass never grows. He swore up and down this is a true thing. He never did show it to me. I used to live out that way, and that's why he brought it up. So that was interesting. But anyway, when I was looking everything up, it started back in the 50s, which is about the time of Roswell and all that stuff. But there was multiple, they say, and the stuff that I was reading, like they claimed like UFO crashes in Charleston, St. Albans, like places we're familiar with, right? Like if you're not from West Virginia, you wouldn't know these places, you know, Charleston. But I was finding out a lot of information that I didn't know. And that was really cool, actually. I didn't know also that West Virginia was high on the list. Like, because I mean, like I said, if you know, if you sit and star watch, or if you're looking at the sky, you hope that you see something. That's the only reason you're looking up. And I was telling Gary before you guys got on here, is when I was looking up all these sightings, it was funny because during the pandemic, there was a ton of sightings. And I think it's because nobody had anything to do. They're looking up, but they're almost all Starlink via Elon Musk, his internet thing. And that was kind of confirmed. Somebody would say, I saw 5 objects moving in unison. I don't know what it was. Well, that was the satellites that Elon Musk put up. And then somebody else said the same thing. It actually happened to a friend of ours named David Lowry, who you know, Lisa.
Yeah.
But his son actually came to him and was like, hey man, there's a bunch of UFOs in the sky. You need to run out here. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And you know, after arguing a few times, he came out there, and then lo and behold, they really were, which he found out again were the satellites from the Elon Musk and the internet thing. So a little bit different, but I think it is cool for people like most of us that don't know that there's a history of UFO sightings in West Virginia. You don't ever hear about it, right? It's not like it's ever on the news or anything like that. And again, what made me know about this stuff anyway, really, is I was at like a book festival or something goofy for something. And I don't read a lot of books either, so it's kind of weird that I was there. It doesn't even make sense. But there was a guy that wrote a book from West Virginia about UFOs, and I thought, well, I'll check that out. And so there's a lot of places.
Like, I want to read it now.
Well, yeah, it's really cool. And actually, I posted when I said we're going to be on there today. I posted the picture of that book. I think the guy that wrote it was Bob Teets. It's very easy to remember because I'm like Beavis and Butthead, and Teets is a word to me.
Is he like still in West Virginia?
I believe so. And I remember reading the book a long time ago.
You have a podcast with him.
Yeah, well, and I don't know if he has a podcast, but he had the book was a lot of one-on-one stories, and a lot of them were goofy. I'll be honest. I read it all, you know, way back when. It was a long time ago, but some are goofy. Like, you know, I don't know. Who knows? Like I said, like you hear all this stuff, and it's early on. It's like people have to judge people, right? Because you're trying to figure out, is this person full of shit? What's their story? Why are they saying this? Some of them were pretty goofy in the book, but there were some in Flatwoods. A lot of them were in McDowell County, which if you're from West Virginia, you know that's people make fun of McDowell County. So, you know, not that people there are bad, it's just they make fun of it.
No, that was Mingo County.
That was like Deliverance to me.
They also make fun of Mingo County. It's just those are the backwoods.
All our counties get made fun of, really.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not making fun. Like a lot of my good friends are from both those places. It's just backwoods places, which makes sense. Like most of the time, like it's the joke, right? Like if you see a UFO at some trailer park and somewhere, you know, I mean, and people are like, why do the UFOs only come to trailer parks? I don't know. Same reason tornadoes only come to trailer parks. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I heard one day when I was talking to a friend. I went to high
You
school.
want me to go get it?
Yeah.
You can talk to your buddy.
I was talking to a friend I went to high school with, and he said there was a teacher there. I never had this teacher, but he had a claim that he had been abducted. Like he was driving down the road and saw a bright light, and I can't remember which road he said now, but my friend I was talking to said that if you brought it up during class, you'd get out of work because he would just talk about it forever. And he made him watch that movie, Fire in the Sky, and stuff. And he said that there was another person driving down the road that saw the same lights. I think what happened to him was that he lost time after he saw the big bright light. And I don't know if he had pulled over or whatever. I never had this guy as a teacher. I knew who he was, but I didn't know this whole story though until today whenever I brought this up.
Yeah.
But he was at Hoover. I don't know where he was driving or what the timeline was, if he was a young man or around the same time as when we would have known him. But
So that also is an Elkview, right?
maybe. I mean, he
Awesome.
was a teacher in Clendenin back when Hoover was in Hoover. But I'm not sure. I just know he was driving somewhere. Not sure where.
Gary, I tell you what, while you're I'm gonna look up roundabout, see, because there's a list of these sightings some places, Gary. I'm gonna look this up and see if I can figure this out while you're talking.
Yeah. Well, okay. So so I am way more into the paranormal than I am alien stuff.
Me
So
too.
paranormal is way more interesting to me.
Feel free to
I've
ask
always,
about our haunted house too, if you want, by the way. So.
I will ask about that
Great
haunted
haunted
house.
house stories. My stories are terrifying, actually.
You can hit me after this. So I grew up in Athens County, Ohio, and Athens County is supposed to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. I don't know. Anyway, there were 5. I guess I had a friend whose father wrote a book about these 5 cemeteries that form a pentagram, and inside of that pentagram is the ridges, and the ridges is supposed to be haunted. And the ridges was a mental institution for people way back when, I don't know, maybe late 1800s, early 1900s. And it's right in the center of Ohio University. So Ohio University is there, the Ohio University Bobcats, all that jive. And there was a mental institution there. And inside the mental institution, there was a lady who died. And I don't know the whole story, but her outline where she had died, I guess she had sat there for a little while. And in the concrete, you can see where she had died. Now, like it stained the concrete or whatever. Yeah. I worked at a place called Kids on Campus. They started using the ridges as storage. So the university, any extra supplies they had, or if they had old computers that they weren't using, they basically just took it to the ridges and they used all those asylum cells as storage. And so I was up there and I actually seen the outline where the lady was, where she had died. And I don't know if she committed suicide. I can't really remember it, but it was supposedly her room was haunted and she haunted the area. Now, I didn't have any kind of like haunting experiences there, but it was creepy as fuck.
Did you take a picture of it?
No, I didn't. This was 90.
Oh, okay.
94, 95, maybe. And so I skipped out on work. So it was a bunch of high school kids and we were there loading a whole bunch of equipment or paper or whatever it was into our supply room. And after we did that, we ran around and I actually had, I don't know if it was a dungeon or if you want to call it a dungeon, but it was like an underground area. And we went down into that, who was in the basement, and it was creepy as hell, seeing all the rooms. And we see in the room that supposedly this lady was, and they do tours now. So if you go to Athens, Ohio, Ridges tour or whatever, you can find it. But before that was a thing, we went into the room where the lady had died. She haunts that place still, I guess. I didn't have any experiences. It was creepy as shit, but I didn't have any experiences where it was like, I've been haunted.
Well, as I said, I grew up legitimately in a haunted house, and I've done like scary ghost tours. Like I've stayed all night in what's that prison?
Moundsville.
I stayed all night in Moundsville prison twice to do ghost hunts, and I went to Weston, which is our insane asylum here that's supposed to be haunted. And I went through all of that stuff. I'm not a person that goes through everything and thinks everything's haunted. I think some people are like that. Like they go anywhere and they think everything's spooky or whatever. I'm not like that, but I know for sure that where I grew up was haunted. Definitely.
It was 100%. You could feel when you were in the upstairs room, you could feel like it was so uncomfortable, like just a presence of evil. There's just no other way to describe it. And the shit would always just go missing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had
I had tampons end up
Yes.
outside. Like somebody threw them out the window on, like there was like a walkway on that side, like that nobody ever went over there. But it was like a whole box of freaking tampons. Like ha ha ha.
There was just funny things like that would happen. Like you put a movie in and then you go to the bathroom and come back and there's a different movie in the what were they called? The VCR back then. You know, just things like that. But then I actually had like actual terrifying things happen to me there.
They're like I feel like the bathroom ghost was mischievous.
Yeah.
Like you didn't feel afraid or anything like that in the bathroom.
We called him George. We're like, this is George.
And it was just more like that they would take stuff.
And
maybe we'll call it a fairy. I don't know. It was mischievous.
Slam doors.
Yeah.
You know, turn the
but
TV
you didn't
on and
feel
off,
like afraid.
or turn the volume up on the TV.
But
stuff like that.
Literally, like you would feel like you would be in bed there and you would feel like paralyzed with fear.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had something like attack me, like grab me. I mean, it was like legitimately like it was. I can't even believe I ever went even back upstairs to sleep, but I did.
Describe that, because I think that's highly unusual, right? People say that they see things, or they possibly saw things, or objects moved, or they heard a noise, or whatever. But it's pretty rare. And again, this shows my weirdness. The only other time that I've heard of like physical altercation was when I was watching this weird movie where this ghost raped people. You know, it might have been a porn. I don't know.
It's the Entity. I know that
yes,
movie.
That's exactly the movie.
No, it's a book and a movie, and it really happened. It had Barbara Hershey in it. It's so good. Well,
I'm glad, because I'm like, I just feel like I should have went straight to the porn because nobody knew what I was going to talk about. But if you know,
I mean, it did get.
I think
it was graphic. Yeah,
it was graphic. Yeah, he was feeling her boobs while she was.
Yeah, and you can see their.
When you're a rational human being, your rational mind will always go to the rational explanation. Lisa is probably one of the most rational human beings I've ever known in my life. So I think even she will be like, this happened, but like if there was an explanation for anything other than that would be just normal or rational, she would say that.
But yeah, this did not like what it was is I was laying in my bed. I was probably like 16. And I feel like we brought this thing in our house with a Ouija board.
It's what she's getting for Christmas.
No, don't. This is a fight we have all the time. So anyhow, we had this spirit, George, in the house always. And we just kind of joked about it, didn't take it seriously. It wasn't like super scary. It was just, you know, I don't know.
It was like
something.
the funny one.
Yeah.
Or the jokester.
Yeah, so then we
Loki.
started playing with this Ouija board in there, and it did stuff. I mean, it spoke to us, but we didn't even take it seriously. We were just like, oh.
But I think it goes to that rational, like you don't believe, even if it's going on or happening to you, at any point, I think your mind still goes to just a rational place of like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Or somebody's fucking with you, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I was laying there, And I was on my back, and it's an old house, so you hear every step anybody makes. So it's hardwood floors, and I just felt something like pow, pow, pow coming at me. I don't know if that's what woke me up, but it grabbed my ankles and it jerked me almost all the way off my bed, and then it just like fell, like folded over on top of me, and I couldn't breathe or scream, nothing like that. Just like it, just it was awful. And then it was just like it jumped off in one move and was all the way across the room, which I had big bedrooms, and it was like
They were huge.
Could still like hear it breathing, you know what I mean? And then I just ran out of there and went downstairs. I didn't even talk to my mom and dad about it because they don't believe anything I ever said anyways, my parents were great, but they would have been like, you're fine, it's fine. So I just slept on the couch that night. And then also I'm super stubborn. The next night I was like, I'm going to sleep up here, but I would turn the light off and run and jump in my bed, put the covers over my head. And I would not to get all religious, but I would pray or whatever. And I don't know if I exorcised this demon or whatever, but eventually that heavy awfulness feeling went away and it was back to just George again. But for a while, I had a glass, back when you drank out of glass bottles, like a Mountain Dew bottle was glass, one of those just completely, it was under my bed, just shattered for no reason. I mean, there's glass from one windowsill to the other. And like I said, my bedroom was,
both bedrooms upstairs were I would say even bigger than a normal person's entire living room. They were just huge, massive bedrooms.
And it was it wasn't something like weather or temperature really. I mean, it was broken violently, I would say. And just more scary-ish things were happening while that guy was around. Eventually, even, when I got divorced, I went back and stayed at mom and dad's house for a while. There was new electronics upstairs, new TVs and stuff, and it was still the same thing. The TV would turn itself up all of a sudden or turn off, or, and it wasn't even the same one. So there was something there for sure. And Jamie Barker, that, she will agree with all this too. Just weird.
It is weird, right? So, but what did you guys leave that place, or what happened? Why, what put an end to that, just that you grew up and left, or what happened?
Yeah, grew up, moved out, and then my mom and dad moved out to their farm. And I mean, nobody was scared to be there or live there, but we actually were the longest people that ever lived there. Even if I talked about before we lived there, it was just a rental house and nobody lived there for very long. But I really grew up there from 6th grade and until the girls till I met Joe. I mean, my second marriage, we had that house. So
I think it's just in life is you don't ever think that would happen to you. Even if you're experiencing it, you try to explain it away. And then maybe you grow up and you talk to other people that are like-minded, where you're receptive to, you're I believe in ghosts. I believe in aliens. I believe in this stuff. Then you start going, oh, I believe too. And I think, you know what I mean? Then you really start processing it mentally and going, yeah, I really think this happened to me. This, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that weird, but since I had been there for so long, it just was it was just a thing, it was normal to me now, but then, it didn't even bother me.
Well, I mean,
Mean one.
Yeah.
Except at what?
I said, except for that one mean one that tried to get me, George, the whole family was fine
I lived with Lisa for a while, and
Yeah.
I remember just missing things or just bullshit that happened. And it was just explained away haha.
Yeah, that was George.
It was more aggravating, dumb stuff.
You guys are crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Or that.
Yeah, I know, I'm just playing, but no, that's a lot of stuff. But I also think, because I know, I've got friends, and this is what I was thinking while you guys were talking, sometimes when you talk about one thing, meaning that, let's say alien, whether you believe in aliens or ghosts, right? But then you kind of believe in all of it. People are well, that person's just full of shit. And it's because you believe in everything. But I would almost say, this is just me thinking, like if you have an experience, it almost opens your mind to more things, because you're like, well, if that could happen, then all those things could happen. I didn't believe in anything. Let's say you didn't believe in zero.
Yeah.
And then you saw a UFO. Then you're like, well, if I saw a UFO, then why couldn't a ghost walk up beside me, or Bigfoot be next to me? Or, right? It kind of opens your mind. Like,
Yeah.
because the argument is the argument that I hear a lot of times is like, look, they believe in all that stuff. They're stupid, right? Or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to validate I'm not discrediting anything you've said, but I'm just saying, like, who knows, right? I don't know. That's why I find it interesting to talk to people, because I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not, like, I think it's extremely rude for somebody to say, like, if you're like, hey, I had this experience, and then somebody's like, no, you didn't, right? I wasn't there. Right? That's stupid. Like, I don't know what happened. Who knows, right? I think it's all interesting. I don't know. It doesn't mean, like, if I was a guy, like, I'm more apt to just say, hey, whatever, and that's it. Like, doesn't mean I'm running around tooting horns saying I believe everything they said either. It just, I don't know, right? And so I leave it at that. There's a good possibility. I'm probably lean more on the side that you guys are, whatever you say is probably true, because you're my friends and I believe my friends, right? But it is kind of crazy, right? All this stuff's kind of crazy.
Well, yeah, I'd believe it if someone told me. I mean, I wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't out and out and be like, you're a liar, if I just met somebody and they're saying stuff. But I do, but my mind is open to, like you're saying, like, I don't know, wasn't there, It's just,
and that's kind of where I come from. It's like, it's not that I think anybody's lying. As being skeptical, I think there's a logical explanation that can explain this away. I don't know when it comes to, hey, I found this perfectly square microchip inside my arm. I don't have anything that's going to explain that away, but I feel like for most of these instances, I think that there is some sort of explanation that would explain this away, as far as mathematical or scientific process. Now, that being said, I also am open to the idea that hey, maybe we were visited by somebody else. I don't know. I'm not closed-minded as far as what the possibilities are. I think that there's certainly, and I've even had, I don't know if you want to call them religious experiences or whatnot, but I've certainly had experiences that were not scientifically explained away, right? So for myself, it more religious than it is UFO or ghost or anything like that. More religious, like I've certainly had times where and like we said, not trying to get too emotional or religious or whatever, but I after my dad passed away, I've certainly had times where I felt like, man, my dad's here with me, or something else is happening right now that is not easily explained by science. Like science can't explain what I'm feeling emotionally, and I don't know if it's a spirit or I don't know if it's whatever it is, but there's something else going on that is not explainable. So I'm open to other things, to other ideas.
Let me ask you the question for everybody, because this might go with, everybody's open to some discussion here. And maybe Jamie, you lead it off, but you don't have to, since you've had this experience, and it might make you think more than the rest of us. There's some theories out there that you can say that extraterrestrials or aliens come from a different planet. You could say they're interdimensional. Some people say that they're just humans from the future coming back. Actually, on the Today Show, of all places, because now everybody's running these stories now. But it was funny because it was on the Today Show, and I watched it every morning with my wife while we're getting ready for work. But they're going around saying, "What do you guys think this is?" or whatever. And then one of the people said, "Well, I think it's just humans from the future coming back," and blah blah blah. And they all are like, "I'm sorry, we asked you. You're fucking nuts." Like I thought of all the things that she was the craziest, but there's a lot of people that think that. And of course, most of us listen to Joe Rogan. I know that Gary probably does, and I do, but that's what he thinks, right? There may be us kind of going through an evolutional thing in the future, right? That's why they're all like gray, because they've been stuck in space for so long, and their heads are bigger and they have no muscles, no genitals. It's just humans in the future or whatever. He goes on and on about it. But what's your thoughts? What do you think, since you've had probably more time to think about it than some of us?
I've actually not, but I'm probably like no thought into it at all. Like, to me, again, I think when you look at it, when you're just thinking of this universe, how many planets do we have? 7, 9?
It changed some.
Whatever it is.
Good
And
point.
you're looking at it from that perspective, that obviously when that perspective, you think there can't be anything else, because we have went to, Mars, we've went to the moon, we've looked at Jupiter. There seems to appear to us in our little mentality, there's nothing else out there. But again, there supposedly is like 18 or like 80,000 other solar systems.
Yeah, it's actually
we're just talking about our solar system,
yeah,
that we're aware of with 7 planets. If there's 80 more, you would have to literally be a moron to think there was no other life besides ours, with another planet, with whatever.
No,
And that's in retrospect to the alien question.
you're right. Well, no, and they don't have a number, just so you know. It's infinite, right? So when we look outside and see stars, those are what a lot of people are saying now. When you see a star, that's a sun, right? And around that sun is other planets.
Then if that is in itself another solar system,
There's
like
lots of-
ours, then every star that you see, you would have to think would be another solar system, just like ours. There would
Yeah,
be one planet in that solar system that would also have life, whether it be like ours, different than ours, more advanced than ours. I mean, just that to me would be like rational thinking. That would have to exist.
oh, it is. And I think everybody agrees with you now, right? I think that was the argument all the way up until recently, right? There were people be like, there's no other life. We are it, right? And then once they start realizing, like, no, like it's infinite out there, right? There's infinite. So there's a theory that there could be infinite Lisas and Jamies, and all of you do something different, right? That's how many planets are out there. When I say infinite, it means it doesn't end. There's infinite Lisas, and she's made when it comes to decision, she's made every decision can be made on that different planet, right? So I think, like, the point is, right, some of these that's why I was saying earlier, I think some of these arguments are like antiquated because they're old, right? So I think everybody agrees, even the most religious people, that yeah, there's probably life. Now, some of those people dumb it down. They don't want to believe there's life like us. They can say, well, there's life that's microbial, there's life that are just plants, there's whatever, but there's 100% out there. If you believe, which is somewhat controversial now, that asteroid that came here from Mars that apparently had some kind of life, some bacteria on it, that was fossilized, but now they say that might not be true. It's kind of like they argue back and forth about that. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, right? But at least there's an opportunity. So I don't think it's even if there is anything, there probably is, right? The argument really comes down to, if there is, are they visiting here? And that's usually what people come down to. Even the greatest astrophysicists of the world, they'll kind of argue like, yeah, they're probably here, but they can't get here because the nearest star with habitable life is so many light years away, and there's no way they could possibly get here. By the time they would be here, we'd all be dead, right? So, but then somebody would argue, well, that's with conventional travel as we know it, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on, right? So you can kind of get stuck in the weeds with all that stuff. What I would like to say is that when I hear stories like yours, I have no reason not to believe that, right? And I want to believe, like Gary said, so that's also a problem. As I also know my own biases, that I want to believe everybody because I'm interested. So I just leave it in the middle where I'm not like, oh, that person's full of crap, this person's true. I just, I hope it's true. And then I move on with my life. That's it, right? And I think that's probably where most of us are, right? It doesn't occupy my daily life, meaning that if somebody came tomorrow and said 100% there's no aliens, I wouldn't be like crushed. It's like, that's a bummer. If they came back 100% and said there are, I'd say, like Gary said, well, let me see them. That's it. Like, that's where I would be. Right. So that's where I'm like, I'm happy about it. I'm just happy. I'm happy that we had this opportunity to talk about some stuff too. But what I was thinking, because I want to make Lisa extra fucking crazy for everybody. She's had some ghost stories. She didn't have any ghost stories. But Gary, just for your own knowledge here, she did tell me some great Bigfoot stories before. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
So like Gary, I think she's starting to get more wackier and wackier too, isn't she? she's
Hold up. Now, you guys, before you guys get too far into your Bigfoot story, you know that Bigfoot porn is a real thing?
Absolutely. They have Bigfoot romance novels.
Yeah, Bigfoot erotica.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I'm
So-
just gonna say, for the record, I think Bigfoot, and I love Bigfoot, but I think Bigfoot is bullshit.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay.
Though.
You're
Well,
kind
People
of
wanna do that.
opinion.
But I mean, like, if we're like the skeptics of whatever, like the Loch Ness monster, clearly you would have found that shit by now. Bigfoot, clearly to me, you would have found a fucking Bigfoot by now. So those things, and I love Bigfoot. I just think the Bigfoot's the titties, the fucking big hair and all that. I'm all about it. It's my jam. But do I think it's real? No.
Well, now it's Lisa's
But
turn to
I
tell
love
us about.
Lisa thinks
Yeah,
she's
well, she's going to
so-
tell us about her Bigfoot erotica. So lay it on us.
I think we talked to one.
Huh?
So
Okay, so anyway,
we
you
talked
slept
to
with
it.
Bigfoot. Tell us all about it.
what had happened was we have a farm out in Clay County, which there is
Really?
activity there if you read any Bigfoot research stuff in Clay County, West Virginia. So gosh, I don't know, this was probably like 10-ish years ago, more than between 10 and 13 years ago. It's just Joe and I out there. We don't have any, it's very primitive. We do have electric out there, but it's just on the pole. You got to run like extension cords and stuff. We were sitting on the porch. It was probably fall. I think we were playing like a board game or something like that, because there's nothing to do or whatever, because it was dark and you couldn't shoot guns, or if you like to do that, or fish or whatever. So anyhow, we were just killing time. I will say though, we had been drinking some moonshine, but we were not drunk. But so we're country people, we've grown up in the country. I've heard every animal, and so is he, that you can think of, coyotes and the wildcats, and bears. I mean, everything. We just know what it sounds like. So we heard something, it was like a big rock being thrown, like you could, and then it just crushing through the woods, like something just threw it. And I think because we've been drinking, so we hollered out, and then there was something that yelled back at us. Okay, and it didn't sound like it did not sound like a human at all, and I can't even really describe it. It was just so weird. And then it just really carried. It seemed like it didn't seem like he was like close by us, but when you're out in the country and stuff, sounds are weird and different with the way things are. Actually, I think it started out that we kept hearing like knocking, like somebody had a limb or something beating it against a tree. And then I think that's when we yelled, and then it yelled back at us. And I think it was towards the end of the whole exchange is whenever the big loud, like, it sounded like somebody threw a huge boulder or rock, and it was just tumbling through the woods and hitting all the trees and brush and all that. But we yelled back and forth at each other, probably like 4 times before we were like, okay, that's good enough, and we went inside. So that's my Bigfoot story. I'm not, I just say it's a Bigfoot story. We don't actually know, but it's just not any other experience we've ever could have replicated that either one of us had been through. And he's super old, so he should have known more stuff than me. Yeah. So
he was around in like the 1800s.
Yeah.
Well, do you know Gary, that like do you listen to any Bigfoot stuff or watch any of those shows by chance?
Man, I watched Survivor Man. I don't know if you guys know
Okay.
what that
Right,
show
yeah.
is. Survivor Man with Wes Stroud.
Yeah,
Yeah. So he was a big he believes in Bigfoot and he had an experience.
He ruined
I-
his career actually because of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all he
Oh,
does is
bummer.
chase Bigfoot now, and he's on
Well, some
YouTube.
of the
and
stories
TV.
sound so accurate. It's really hard to discount them. My story is kind of like whatever, and I know
Well,
that.
Well, no,
But
that's
some
the problem. His stories are actually just like yours, and that's the problem. It's not compelling for TV, and it's not, you know, I mean, it's that being said, now Finding Bigfoot's been on for a million years, and those exactly, and that's what I was going to say, Garrett. Like that's essentially all that happens. There's tree knocking, right?
Yep.
Somebody beating a stick to a tree, and they don't know if that's, you know, whatever, and then throwing rock, and then the thing. So if you watch Finding Bigfoot with Bobo, right, then he's like all that nonsense, right? That's essentially. But you didn't know. I guess that would be my question. Did you know that those were the signs before? That's
No,
pre.
we didn't, because we didn't watch Bigfoot stuff or whatever. I mean, eventually at some point maybe we caught it and we're like, oh my gosh, that's just like what it sounded like or whatever. But we never we're not, you know, we didn't want to watch. We don't watch Bigfoot documentaries, or, you know, if it comes up on a little clip during, you know, how they have documentaries that'll have like a whole lot of different things in it, and maybe they'll have a little segment about Bigfoot. It's interesting. We'd watch it, but yeah, I had never heard anything about that stuff before that. But I mean, I don't know what it was actually. It's just a fun story, but it could have been. I just never had anything else like that happen. And when I was reading Russ's book, I did see that there was stuff in Clay County. So
Yeah,
I've just got a couple more minutes, and the only thing that I can add to the Bigfoot conversation is that Bobcat Goldthwait, he was, you guys might have known him from Police Academy. He's like, yeah. So he's that guy. So he did, it was some sort of movie about Bigfoot, but he was actually at the Bigfoot convention at Baroque Lodge. I believe it was a Baroque Lodge in Athens, Ohio. Or well, it was technically, it'd be like Corning, Gloucester, Ohio. But so there's a Bigfoot convention in Ohio, and he did that, and that was like 5 minutes from my house. So when I lived in Ohio, so as far as Bigfoot goes, it's kind of the same. I'm kind of the same on Bigfoot as I am aliens. I am way closer to believing in ghosts than I am in Bigfoot or aliens. I am more interested in the paranormal than I am Bigfoot and aliens. And that's just like I said, you know, I've had experiences where, and I don't know if this is my emotions taking hold or what it is, but I've had spiritual moments where I believe that my dad passed away when I was 17, and that I believe that my dad was there. I felt his presence being there. And so those things have been way more relative to me. But once again, I don't discount any, just like Butch said, I don't discount anybody's experiences. And the answer really is I don't know. I don't know what's out there. I don't know if we're being visited, and I don't know if there's Bigfoot, and I don't know if there are ghosts, but I'm open to it. I just want proof. That's my thing, is I just like proof.
I still don't say that I'm a actual Bigfoot believer, but I still am feel like it's possible. I wouldn't say I'm not like Jamie and saying it's completely not possible.
It's complete horseshit.
Yeah, we disagree. We agree to disagree on that. But everything else, you know.
And the Loch Ness Monster. Those two are horseshit. I'm going to debunk that. You would absolutely have found that by now. Proof. Irrefutable proof.
Okay. You got me on this. Yeah, it's a cool idea.
It's a fucking lake. You can drag the whole lake. It's just, hello. It's there or it's not. Bigfoot to me is just you think there's only one elusive Bigfoot that's lived for 50 years?
I don't think anything about it. I just think there can be Bigfoot.
That's bullshit.
No, and it's funny. I bring that up because I know Lisa had told me that story before, and I kind of surprised her with telling me that story. But it's just because same thing. We kind of brushed over all that stuff. And again, I think it's interesting to talk about, right? Like I sit up, and Lisa hears my wife joke about it all the time. Like at night. That's what I go to bed to. I think I told Gary that too. And it's not necessarily because I like those shows. I guess I do, but it's, I don't know. The fact that something's being narrated puts me to sleep, where somebody's like, and Bigfoot came out of the thing, and somebody's like, yeah, I saw him, and blah blah blah. Like that whole documentary type stuff, for whatever reason, just it's soothing to me. It's kind of very strange. Like it's odd. Like we're my
Out
wife.
of all of the things, the Bigfoot would probably be my one that I would like be like, I wish that was true. I just think Bigfoot is the coolest shit ever. But I just, like me, I don't believe it, because I think there's no way that there's anything that's so elusive. Like it couldn't be a species, because that would be multiple. There's no way any species has eluded all mankind ever.
That's why they're called the hide and seek champions, Jamie.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Well, yeah. So just like my friend just said too, it actually, and I was going to bring this up, so I'll just say it too, but it is true. So there is another theory, and I'll throw what he said, but he wrote, Bigfoot is a multi-dimensional traveling alien. But I will say that it sounds worse when he says it like that, but it is.
Well, he just tied it all together, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, it is a strong theory because right, you only they kind of correlate with some sightings. Plus, if you're going to believe in the West Virginia Mothman, it's very similar story, right?
I can't believe in that
based
either.
off-
I mean, I don't know. I hate to like say anything is or isn't. Mothman to me is just, I
You
don't-
blatantly just said some things just aren't there.
I
No.
don't believe there's a Loch Ness monster. I don't. The Mothman to me seems fucking stupid. Like
No, but
there's
that's, I think oddly enough, that adds validity to some of your stories, right? Because that's what everybody says. They're like, oh, those crackpots believe in everything, right? And so I think oddly enough,
like, and that's like, if Lisa tells me something, I know Lisa is a very grounded, rational person. So if she says something happened to her, I will take that shit to the bank. There's not even a question in my mind. And I feel like it's the same with me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a very to the point, rational, boom person. So I don't like, I say, I think I was abducted by aliens. Yeah. Does that mean everyone else should think that? Well, fuck no. You don't know me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I could be a lunatic. I don't know. But like, do I believe in Loch Ness monster? No, it's a fucking lake. You could have, if you can't find what's in a lake by now, you're an idiot. I love Bigfoot. I think it's the coolest thing ever. But again, you could have found proof of that by now. If you haven't, that's bullshit. Mothman, something I never even think about. But again, bullshit. You know what I mean?
You never think about it, but
I mean, but no.
no, well, it's good. And again, I just wanted to hear because I am interested, right? And I think other people are interested. That's why we put it on. Some of my favorite, I think all of us listen to Joe Rogan podcasts and stuff. Some of my favorite podcasts with him is when he interviews people that say they've seen UFOs or worked on UFOs or he had the Fire and Sky on there. I think his name's Travis, maybe, I can't remember, but anyway, he had that guy on there. So anyway, it's like fine, it's cool to talk to somebody where I live and hear about that. And by the way, but while you guys were busy, talking, I did look it up, and unfortunately they didn't go in chronological order, but it like meaning that when I was looking up for dates, like it started, looked like 1950, and then the next one would be 2004, the next one would be 2015, and then back to the 90s. It was all over the place. But there was some stuff around that date when I really quickly skimmed through there. I just wanted to correlate, not that, again, that even that means nothing. I just thought it'd be cool if I was like, yeah, look, around this date, there was something here. And I knew people were watching this live on Instagram. They don't want to see me scrolling on the internet for a half hour. So I just stopped. But I do know Gary's got to go too. And normally, and Gary and I was kind of joking about this in the beginning, because normally we kind of tie this back, like some people training hard, they're doing this, and it's very uplifting. There's nothing uplifting about your stories, unfortunately. I'm just joking with you. No, meaning that there's no like positive thing where it's going to be
survival.
well, that's very true. It is. you survived, you came through, and you're like, I'm gonna dig this thing out of my arm and fuck those motherfuckers, don't come back. Right. So I guess, there is a story of survival there. But no, it was, to me, this, like, life is about having fun and learning stuff. And if nothing
Yeah.
else, I learned some stuff today that Lisa saw ghosts, Bigfoot, and her friends have saw aliens, and she sleeps in bed with possible
I
Really
didn't say
fucking
that
crazy.
I am putting it out there that I'm not sure that was Bigfoot. I'm just saying
It's better
it was
chance that
cool if it was,
Yeah. But I
would love-
I don't, Gary's the one that's not so into this stuff, so hopefully we didn't bore the crap out of him. But
No, I'm down. Here's the big takeaway, right? It's like, I think it's important to not diminish anybody else's life experience. And your belief structure is set in what you grew up with and what you experienced yourself. But it is important to not push that on, ethnocentrism. I don't know if you guys are aware of the term, but essentially it means using your life experiences as a measuring stick against other people's life experiences. It's important not to do that. And it's important to try and be open-minded to what other people are saying. I don't think anything that I've experienced in my life would make any sense to anybody outside of my life. And it's important to not try and say that anybody else's experiences are supposed to fit inside of a box that you've experienced, because it's not. And I personally, I want to thank you ladies for coming on here and sharing all your stories. I 100% believe everything that happened to you happened to you. I don't necessarily think it might happen to me, but I believe that I believe that it happened to you, and I believe you experienced the way you experienced it. And I am open to any and everything that terrestrial, extraterrestrial, whatever. I believe there's a lot more that I don't know than what I know. And I think it's important that most of us think about that. There's a lot more going on that we don't know than what we know, regardless of who you are. And so try and be open-minded and think about those things. So thank you for coming on, and I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
That's all right, man. We'll sign off with that, and I'll see the rest of you guys soon. Thank you,
All right,
Jamie.
bye.
All kinds of love, guys. Take care.
You too.